there is a deeply comforting lie that modern society has universally embraced. It is the idea that your emotions are your truest self. We are told to trust our feelings, to let our emotions guide us, and to operate under the assumption that every emotional reaction we experience is a profound, necessary truth. This audiobook begins with a harsh, uncompromising counter-narrative. Your emotions are not your friends. They are not wise advisors. They are primitive biological algorithms designed for a violent, unforgiving world that ceased to exist thousands of years ago. Your emotional architecture evolved for one singular purpose: to keep you physically alive in the presence of predators. It was not designed to help you navigate a complex corporate negotiation. It was not designed to help you communicate with a frustrated spouse. It was absolutely not designed to help you build long-term wealth, happiness, or inner peace. Today, those same automatic, primitive reactions are the primary forces actively sabotaging your success. When you receive an aggressive email from a colleague, your brain does not process it as a simple text document. Your amygdala, the brain's ancient alarm system, processes it as a literal predator. In exactly 12 milliseconds, it floods your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. It accelerates your heart rate. It completely shuts down your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, reason, and long-term planning. Your rational mind takes 500 milliseconds to even boot up. By the time you realize what is happening, the ancient machinery has already hijacked your nervous system. You lash out. You send the angry reply. You say the words that shatter a marriage. You make a catastrophic financial decision. We call this being authentic. In reality, it is simply being held hostage by your biology. The cost of this emotional reactivity is devastating. It destroys professional reputations in a matter of minutes. It turns minor, solvable disagreements into relationship-ending conflicts. Neurologically, living in a constant state of reactivity literally rewires your brain for failure. It physically shrinks your prefrontal cortex, locks you into a chronic state of stress, and exhausts your cognitive bandwidth. But there is a different way to live. If you study the highest achievers in the world, elite athletes, top-tier executives, seasoned military operators, you will find they all share one critical trainable skill. They have not eliminated their emotions. They feel the exact same fear, anger, and frustration that you do, but they have mastered the space between a stimulus and their response. They feel the emotion, but they do not take orders from it. They treat their feelings as packets of data, not mandatory instructions. They choose their response based on logic, strategy, and long-term goals, rather than primitive impulses. This is not a philosophy of suppression. Pushing emotions down only creates a psychological pressure cooker. This is a framework of complete emotional alchemy. Over the next 10 chapters, we are going to dismantle the way you currently process reality. We will explore the evolutionary mismatch that is sabotaging your daily life. You will learn the 4 distinct levels of emotional mastery, the neuroscience of rewiring your brain, and the exact tactical protocols used by elite performers to neutralize an amygdala hijack in real time. We will cover how to extract the raw energy from anger and fear and weaponize it for your success. You are going to learn how to step out of the reactive animal brain and become the sovereign architect of your own responses. The world is chaotic. You cannot control the stimuli. But from this moment forward, you will control the response. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The Evolutionary Mismatch. Picture the world 50,000 years ago. You are walking through tall, dense grass. Suddenly, a shadow moves in your periphery. A twig snaps. If you stop to analyze the sound, if you use logic to deduce whether it is a predator, a harmless animal, or just the wind, you are already dead. Survival in that brutal, unforgiving environment required an instantaneous, unthinking reaction. Your brain's primary objective was not your happiness, your wealth, or your inner peace. Its sole, ruthless objective was keeping your physical body alive until tomorrow. To accomplish this, your brain evolved an incredibly efficient security system. At the center of this system is an almond-shaped cluster of neurons called the amygdala. It is your primitive alarm bell. Its entire job is to scan the environment for threats and initiate an immediate, overwhelming biological response to keep you safe. But there is a catastrophic problem with this ancient machinery. The amygdala is incredibly fast, but it is not smart. It cannot differentiate between a literal saber-toothed tiger and a condescending tone from your boss. To your primitive brain, a threat is a threat. It processes social and ego-based threats using the exact same biological hardware it uses for physical survival. Let us look at the raw mathematics of your biology. When a stimulus enters your brain, the signal splits into two distinct paths. One path goes directly to the amygdala. The other path goes to your prefrontal cortex, the highly evolved, logical, rational part of your brain that handles complex decision-making, emotional regulation, and long-term planning. The signal reaches your amygdala in exactly 12 milliseconds. The signal takes 500 milliseconds to reach your prefrontal cortex. Read those numbers again. 12 milliseconds versus 500 milliseconds. Your emotional alarm system is more than 40 times faster than your rational mind. This biological gap is the exact space where your life falls apart. When you receive an aggressive email from a client, your eyes scan the words. In 12 milliseconds, the amygdala perceives a threat to your status, your livelihood, or your ego. It immediately pulls the fire alarm. Before you are even fully conscious of what you are reading, your nervous system is hijacked. Your brain floods your bloodstream with a massive surge of cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate violently accelerates to pump oxygen to your muscles, preparing you to either fight to the death or sprint for your life. Your pupils dilate, and most destructively, the amygdala literally diverts electrical energy and blood flow away from your prefrontal cortex. It shuts down the logical part of your brain because in a physical survival situation, logic is too slow. You do not need complex problem-solving skills to run from a bear. You just need to run. This is what neuroscientists call an amygdala hijack. You are temporarily, biologically incapable of rational thought. And what do you do with this massive surge of combat energy? You sit at your ergonomic desk, staring at a glowing screen, and you type a furious, career-ending reply. You hit send. 500 milliseconds later, your prefrontal cortex finally boots up. The logic comes back online. You look at the screen, read the email you just sent, and a cold wave of dread washes over your body. You realize, with total clarity, that you just made a massive, potentially unrecoverable mistake. We all know this feeling. It is the immediate, crushing regret that follows a moment of emotional reactivity. It is the argument with your spouse that escalated entirely out of control. It is the impulsive financial decision made in a state of panic. The hidden costs of these 12 millisecond hijacks are astronomical. In modern society, we treat emotional reactivity as a character quirk. We say things like, "I just have a quick temper," or "I wear my heart on my sleeve." This is not a quirk. It is a severe operational vulnerability. When you allow your ancient biology to dictate your modern responses, you destroy professional reputations that took decades to build. You alienate the people who matter most. You hemorrhage trust in your relationships because people quickly learn that you are unstable and unpredictable under pressure. But the damage is not just external. It is deeply, physically, neurological. When you live in a chronic state of reactivity, you are constantly marinating your brain in stress hormones. Cortisol is highly toxic to the brain in large, sustained doses. Neuroscientists have proven that chronic emotional reactivity actually weakens the neural pathways to your prefrontal cortex and physically shrinks its size over time. Simultaneously, it enlarges the amygdala. Think about the terrifying implications of that fact. Every time you allow yourself to blindly react to a minor stressor, you are literally rewiring your brain to become more fearful, more anxious, and significantly less intelligent. You are feeding the animal and starving the architect. To master your life, you must stop judging yourself for the initial instinct. You cannot control the 12-millisecond reaction. That is hardwired into your DNA. It is a permanent feature of the human condition. But you can absolutely control what happens in the 500 milliseconds that follow. Mastery is not about never feeling angry, terrified, or insulted. Mastery is about recognizing the physical sensation of the hijack, slamming the brakes on your behavior, and aggressively forcing the prefrontal cortex back online. Before you take a single action, the tiger is dead. The jungle is gone. It is time to stop operating like prey and start operating like a sovereign mind. Chapter 2. The 4 Levels of Mastery. Transformation is not a light switch. You do not listen to an audiobook, wake up the next morning, and suddenly find yourself immune to the biological chaos of the human condition. Emotional mastery is not a binary state. It is a ladder. And before you can climb that ladder, you must perform a ruthless, objective diagnosis of exactly which rung you are currently standing on. There are 4 distinct levels of emotional mastery. The vast majority of the human population will live and die entirely within the first level. To join the elite minority, you must understand the architecture of each stage. Level 1 is unconscious reactivity. This is the baseline setting of the human animal. At this level, there is absolutely zero space between the stimulus and the response. The organism operates on pure, unadulterated autopilot. A person at level 1 believes that their emotions are absolute, objective facts. If they feel disrespected, they believe they were disrespected. If they feel anxious, they believe the environment is inherently dangerous. They do not say, "I am experiencing a feeling of anger." They say, "I am angry." They fuse their entire identity with the temporary chemical state of their nervous system. Because they cannot separate themselves from their feelings, they possess a permanent victim mentality. Life is always happening to them. Other people make them mad. The economy makes them anxious. They are a leaf blowing in the wind of their own biology, completely blind to the fact that they are reacting at all. Level 2 is conscious reactivity. If you are actively seeking out material on emotional control, you are likely living here. Level 2 is the purgatory of self-improvement, and frankly, it is the most painful stage of the journey. At level 2, you have developed self-awareness. You know that you should not yell at your team. You know that you should not send the passive-aggressive email. But when the pressure spikes, you lack the tactical tools to abort the amygdala hijack. The biology overpowers the logic. The tragedy of level 2 is that you watch yourself make the mistake in real time. It is like being a passenger in a car driven by a drunk driver. You are fully conscious, you are screaming to hit the brakes, but your hands are not on the steering wheel. You react, and immediately after the cortisol clears, you are hit with a crushing wave of guilt. People at level 2 live on a perpetual apology tour, constantly repairing the damage their unchecked biology causes. It is agonizing, but do not despise this stage. The pain of conscious reactivity is the necessary friction that drives you to seek a better way. Level 3 is conscious response. This is the turning point. This is the professional standard. At level 3, you have successfully wedged a crowbar into the 12 millisecond gap between stimulus and reaction, and you have pried it open. When the hijack hits, a person at level 3 still feels the intense physiological arousal. Their heart rate still spikes. The adrenaline still flows. They are not numb. But instead of interpreting those physical sensations as a command to act, they interpret them as pure data. The emotion becomes a blinking light on a dashboard, not a hand on the steering wheel. At this level, you recognize the anger rising in your chest, but you choose your behavior based entirely on your long-term strategic goals. You feel the overwhelming urge to defend your ego in a meeting, but you pause, let the primitive wave wash over you, and ask a calm, clarifying question instead. You act in accordance with the architect, not the animal. Level 4 is emotional alchemy. This is the rarest, most elite state of human performance. Level 4 goes beyond simply managing or pausing negative emotions. It is the ability to actively transmute them. An alchemist does not just survive a stressful event, they weaponize the stress. They understand that emotions like fear, anger, and frustration are not bad. They are simply highly concentrated packets of kinetic energy. When a level 4 operator feels the intense, burning focus of anger, they do not suppress it, nor do they project it onto their spouse. They capture that exact raw energy and channel it into aggressive, relentless problem solving. They take the dark energy of a crisis and convert it into clean, high-octane fuel for execution. They do not just remain calm under pressure. They actually become sharper, faster, and more dangerous because of the pressure. Look at your recent history. Look at your last argument, your last crisis at work, or your last failure. Which level dictated your behavior? Do not lie to yourself to protect your ego. If you are stuck in the agonizing loop of conscious reactivity, accept it. That is your baseline. Because in the next chapter, we are going to forge the specific tactical weapon required to break you out of level 2. We are going to learn how to stop the hijack in its tracks. Chapter 3. The Stop Protocol. Philosophy is useless in a firefight. You can read every book on Stoicism. You can memorize 1,000 quotes about emotional intelligence, and you can understand the neuroscience of the amygdala perfectly. But when the pressure spikes, when a colleague publicly challenges your competence, or a critical deal falls apart at the last second, all of that intellectual knowledge instantly evaporates. When the cortisol floods your system, your brain does not care about philosophy. It only cares about survival. To break out of conscious reactivity, you do not need more positive thinking. You need a tactical, biological circuit breaker. You need a manual override sequence designed to physically halt the machinery of your nervous system and force the prefrontal cortex back online. Elite operators rely on a devastatingly simple 4-step framework. It is called the Stop Protocol. And if you drill it into your muscle memory, it will completely alter the trajectory of your life. The first step is stop. When the hijack initiates, your primitive brain demands immediate, violent action. It wants you to raise your voice. It wants you to send the aggressive text. It wants you to run, fight, or defend your ego at all costs. You must do the exact opposite. You must physically freeze. Do not speak. Do not type a single word. Do not aggressively shift your posture. You must create an absolute, uncompromising cessation of movement. The key to executing this is not waiting until you feel angry, but learning to identify the early physiological warning signs of the hijack. Long before your conscious mind realizes you are furious, your body knows. Your jaw clenches. Your breathing becomes shallow. Heat rises in your chest or your face. A tight knot forms in your stomach. These physical sensations are the proximity alarms of the animal brain. The absolute second you feel them, you execute the hard stop. You shut the physical machinery down so the damage cannot leak into the real world. The second step is take a breath. You cannot think your way out of a biological hijack. If your heart is beating at 120 beats per minute, your brain is convinced you are in physical danger. You cannot simply tell yourself to calm down. You have to speak to your nervous system in the only language it understands: respiration. You must activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the biological brake pedal that counteracts the adrenaline. The most efficient way to do this is through box breathing, a technique utilized by elite military units worldwide. You inhale deeply through your nose for a count of 4 seconds. You hold that breath in your lungs for 4 seconds. You exhale slowly and completely through your mouth for a count of 6 seconds. And then you hold empty for another 4 seconds. The extended 6-second exhale is the neurological trigger. It stimulates the vagus nerve, immediately forcing your heart rate to drop. It physically clears the cortisol from your bloodstream and literally pumps oxygen back into your starved prefrontal cortex. In 2 cycles of this breath, the lights in the rational brain flicker back on. The third step is observe. Now that the biological fire has been contained, you must execute a cognitive separation. You step outside of your own ego and look at the situation with the cold, detached eye of a scientist. Your goal here is to violently separate the objective facts from your subjective, biological narrative. When an employee makes a critical error, your narrative is, they are entirely incompetent, they do not respect my authority, and they are actively trying to destroy this company. That is a hallucination. The objective fact is simply, a data entry error was made on the quarterly report. During the observe phase, you strip away the adjectives, the assumptions, and the mind reading. You look only at the raw data. You recognize that the intense emotion you are feeling is just a temporary chemical state inside your body, not an accurate reflection of reality. You are not the anger. You are the sovereign architect observing the anger. You shrink the perceived threat back down to its actual, manageable size. The final step is proceed. The gap has been successfully opened. The animal has been caged. Now, you must make a choice. You look at the objective facts. You look at your ultimate long-term goal for the situation, and you select the specific response that bridges the gap between the two. If your goal is to build a high-performing team, screaming at the employee who made the error does not serve the goal. It only serves your ego. So, you proceed by asking a clarifying question. You proceed by designing a better training protocol. You proceed with calculated, strategic intent. Stop, take a breath, observe, proceed. It sounds incredibly simple on paper, But executing this sequence while your blood is boiling requires a level of discipline that most humans will never achieve. You cannot wait for a massive crisis to try this for the first time. You must practice the stop protocol in low-stakes environments. Practice it when someone cuts you off in traffic. Practice it when your internet connection drops during a meeting. Practice it when your child spills a glass of water. Build the neurological circuitry in times of peace, so the weapon is fully loaded and ready to fire when you are standing on the battlefield. You are the sovereign of your own mind. Do not let the animal touch the steering wheel. Chapter 4. Advanced Cognitive Regulation. The stop protocol is your frontline defense. It is the tactical tourniquet you apply in the exact moment a crisis strikes. But there are certain environments and specific deep-seated triggers where a simple pause and a deep breath are not enough to neutralize the threat. What happens when the stressor is not a fleeting moment of friction, but a prolonged, agonizing crisis? What happens when you are locked in a high-stakes negotiation that lasts for days, or navigating a toxic professional environment that continuously assaults your nervous system? The animal brain will relentlessly attempt to break through the cage. To maintain sovereignty in these extreme conditions, you must deploy a heavier arsenal. You must master advanced cognitive regulation. These are specific neurobiological tools designed to cool the nervous system and manually override your deeply entrenched emotional programming. The first advanced tool is emotional labeling. When an intense emotion hits, the amateur instinct is to suppress it, ignore it, or violently distract yourself from it. But neuroscience reveals a fascinating paradox. The harder you try to ignore an active emotion, the hotter the amygdala burns. Unacknowledged feelings act like a virus running in the background of your computer, silently draining your system's memory and bandwidth. To neutralize the emotion, you must do the exact opposite. You must accurately name it. In psychological terms, this is called affect labeling. When you feel a massive wave of internal chaos, you must pause and apply highly specific language to the sensation. You do not say, "I am stressed." Stressed is a vague, useless word. You must be precise. "I am experiencing a deep sense of inadequacy because my proposal was rejected." Why does this work? Because the amygdala has no capacity for language. When you force your brain to search for a highly specific vocabulary word to describe a feeling, you are literally forcing electrical activity and blood flow out of the emotional center and directly into the prefrontal cortex, the language center. By simply naming the beast, you neurologically diminish its power. The second tool is cognitive reframing. There is a fundamental truth about human suffering that you must accept. The external stimulus is rarely what causes your pain. It is the story you tell yourself about the stimulus that causes the pain. Imagine a major client unexpectedly cancels a crucial meeting at the last minute. If your internal story is, "They do not respect my time, they are going to fire us, and my business is failing," your brain will initiate a full-scale panic response. But the objective reality is merely a blank space on a calendar. The panic is entirely manufactured by your interpretation. Cognitive reframing is the ruthless, intentional rewriting of that story. You look at the canceled meeting and you consciously reframe it. The client just handed me an unexpected, uninterrupted hour of deep work to finalize our new product architecture. You are not engaging in delusional, toxic positivity. You are simply choosing an equally plausible interpretation of reality that serves your mission, rather than one that sabotages your emotional state. The third tool is timeline reframing. Your amygdala has absolutely no concept of the future. It operates strictly in the immediate present. When you face a setback, a lost contract, a public embarrassment, a financial hit, the primitive brain processes it as a permanent, catastrophic, life or death event. It feels as though the world is ending right now. You must violently force perspective into the equation. You do this by stretching the timeline. When you are consumed by an acute stressor, ask yourself a simple, uncompromising question. Will this specific event matter in 10 days? Will it matter in 10 years? 99% of the things that keep you awake at night and flood your body with cortisol will be completely forgotten in 10 months. By actively projecting your consciousness into the future, you instantly shrink the perceived magnitude of the current threat. You realize that the massive mountain standing in your way is actually just a pebble in your shoe. The final tool is somatic regulation. The mind-body connection is not a philosophical concept. It is a two-way biological street. Just as your thoughts can dictate your physical state can dictate your thoughts. There will be times when the cognitive loop is spinning so fast that you cannot think your way out of the panic. In those moments, you must act your way out. You use the body to hack the mind. If you are overwhelmed with anxious energy, you do not sit perfectly still and try to rationalize it. You engage in intense, brief physical exertion. You drop to the floor and do 30 push-ups to physically burn off the circulating adrenaline. Alternatively, if you are locked in a state of hyperarousal, you can splash freezing cold water on your face. This triggers the mammalian dive reflex, a biological failsafe that immediately forces your heart rate to plummet and overrides the panic response. These 4 tools, emotional labeling, cognitive reframing, timeline reframing, and somatic regulation, are not soft, feel-good psychological tricks. They are tactical, mechanical levers that allow you to operate the machinery of your own nervous system. The elite performer does not leave their emotional state to chance. They build a fortress. They equip themselves with the necessary tools, and they ruthlessly defend the sovereignty of their own mind. Chapter 5. Rewiring the Machine. There is a fatal flaw in modern psychology. We treat the mind as if it exists in a vacuum, entirely separated from the physical body. We believe that if we just read enough books, adopt the right mental frameworks, and repeat the right affirmations, we can overcome any psychological hurdle. This is a delusion. You cannot build a fortress of emotional stability on a broken physical foundation. Your brain is not a mystical entity floating in the ether. It is a biological organ floating in a chemical bath. It requires massive amounts of energy, precise hormonal balance, and structural integrity to perform high-level executive functions. If you are attempting to execute the STOP protocol while chronically sleep-deprived, heavily caffeinated, and running on a diet of processed carbohydrates, you are bringing a knife to a gunfight. Your prefrontal cortex is already starved of resources. The animal brain has already won before the crisis even begins. To achieve level 3 mastery, you must shift your focus from purely psychological tactics to brutal, uncompromising biological optimization. We begin with the science of neuroplasticity. For decades, science believed that the adult brain was a static, unchangeable machine. We now know that the brain is entirely plastic. It is constantly rewiring itself based on your daily actions. Neurons that fire together, wire together. When you spend 10 years reacting aggressively to every minor inconvenience, you lay down massive, high-speed neural superhighways leading directly to your amygdala. You literally make it biologically easier to lose your temper tomorrow than it was today. But neuroplasticity works in both directions. When you consistently deploy the tools from the previous chapters, you begin to pave a new road. And with the right physical baseline, you can accelerate this construction process. You can literally shrink the physical size of your amygdala. The foundation of this baseline is sleep. Sleep is not a luxury for the elite performer. It is the ultimate emotional regulator. Neuroimaging studies have shown that when a human is deprived of just 2 hours of sleep, the amygdala becomes up to 60% more reactive to negative stimuli. 60%. Without sleep, the neurological connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala is physically severed. You become biologically incapable of rational regulation. If you are serious about emotional mastery, you must defend your 8 hours of sleep with the ferocity of a wild animal defending its territory. Treat sleep deprivation not as a badge of honor, but as a critical operational failure. Second is the chemical fuel, nutrition. Your neurotransmitters, the chemicals that dictate your mood, your focus, and your ability to remain calm, are synthesized from the food you eat. Specifically, they are synthesized from amino acids found in protein. If you start your day with a massive spike of sugar and simple carbohydrates, you create a massive spike in blood glucose, followed immediately by a devastating crash. Your body interprets this crash as a physical threat, triggering the release of cortisol. You have just artificially induced an anxiety attack before you have even opened your email. A sovereign mind requires stable blood sugar. Prioritize dense, protein-heavy nutrition. Stabilize the chemical bath. The third pillar is routine physical exertion. When you experience an emotional hijack at your desk, your body floods with combat hormones. Because you cannot actually punch your computer or run out of the building, those hormones have nowhere to go. They sit in your bloodstream, acting like a corrosive acid on your nervous system. Intense, daily exercise is the mechanical process of flushing that acid out of the machine. It burns off the residual cortisol and resets the biological baseline. But the elite operator takes physical exertion one step further. They do not just exercise for health, they engage in strategic stress exposure. True resilience is not built during the crisis. It is built in times of peace, through the intentional, voluntary application of suffering. You cannot wait for the universe to test your emotional control. You must test yourself. This is why high achievers utilize protocols like extreme cold exposure, the ice bath. When you step into a tub of freezing water, your body immediately triggers a massive amygdala hijack. Your chest tightens, your breathing becomes erratic, and your brain screams at you to escape the threat immediately. The physical panic is absolute, but you do not escape. You stay in the water, you force your breathing to slow down, you deploy the stop protocol. You use your prefrontal cortex to manually override the screaming, panicking animal. You teach your nervous system that just because the body is under extreme duress, the mind does not have to break. You can achieve the same effect through brutal, high-intensity workouts, or by intentionally putting yourself in deeply uncomfortable public speaking environments. By regularly exposing yourself to controlled, voluntary stress, you build an emotional callus. You prove to your brain that it can survive the fire. Over time, the everyday friction of your professional life, the rude emails, the missed deadlines, the financial setbacks, ceases to trigger the alarm. The threshold for panic is raised permanently. Do not attempt to negotiate with your mind while neglecting your machine. Fix the biology, fortify the baseline, expose the system to calculated friction. Only then can true alchemy begin. Chapter 6. Emotional Alchemy. There is a toxic, pervasive ideology in modern culture that categorizes human emotions into two distinct columns, good and bad. Joy, gratitude, and peace are placed in the good column. Anger, fear, frustration, and anxiety are violently shoved into the bad column. The self-help industry tells you to suppress the bad column. It tells you to think positive thoughts, to vibrate at a higher frequency, and to permanently banish negativity from your life. This is not just terrible advice. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of physics and biology. Emotions are not moral entities. They do not possess a conscience. Emotions are simply raw, concentrated packets of kinetic energy and biological information. They are the fuel that powers the human machine. And the laws of thermodynamics dictate that energy cannot be destroyed. If you attempt to suppress, ignore, or bury a massive surge of negative emotion, it does not disappear. It goes underground. It festers in your nervous system, degrades your physical health, and eventually violently explodes in the form of burnout or a catastrophic public meltdown. Level 4 of emotional mastery is not suppression. It is transmutation. It is the ancient practice of emotional alchemy. The alchemist does not fear the poison. They extract the venom and use it to manufacture the cure. They take the dark, chaotic energy of the animal brain and force it through the filter of the prefrontal cortex, converting it into clean, high-octane fuel for execution. To become an alchemist, you must learn to decode the exact messages hidden inside your negative states. Let us begin with anger. Society views anger as a destructive, uncivilized emotion. But biologically, anger is a highly specialized targeting system. It arises when a boundary has been crossed, an injustice has occurred, or a deeply held standard has been violated. When you feel anger, your body is handing you a massive, unadulterated dose of pure combat energy. The amateur takes this energy and squanders it. They project it outward. They scream at their employees. They send a scathing email, or they punch a wall. They use the energy to destroy their own environment. The alchemist captures the exact same energy and channels it into aggressive, relentless problem solving. If a competitor steals your market share and you feel furious, you do not complain to your spouse. You take that burning, visceral anger and you weaponize it. You use the heat to stay at the office for an extra 3 hours. You use it to completely rebuild your sales architecture. You aim the weapon not at people, but at the obstacle. Next is fear. We are taught that fear is a sign of weakness or cowardice. It is not. Fear is a highly accurate compass. It identifies exactly what is valuable to you, and it highlights the precise threshold of your current capabilities. You do not feel fear when doing something meaningless. You feel fear right before you step onto a stage, pitch a massive client, or have a critical conversation that could alter the trajectory of your life. If you wait for the fear to disappear before you act, you will wait forever. True courage is not the absence of fear. It is intelligent, calculated action in the exact presence of fear. The alchemist feels the terror, recognizes that it means they are standing on the edge of their own evolution, and steps forward into the void. Anyway, then there is frustration. Frustration is the psychological friction that occurs when there is a gap between your expectation and your reality. You put in the work, but you do not get the result. The amateur interprets frustration as a signal from the universe that they should quit. They throw their hands up and walk away. The alchemist interprets frustration as a critical data point. It simply means the current strategy is broken. It is an invitation to pivot. Instead of letting frustration turn into apathy, you convert it into clinical curiosity. You dismantle your current approach piece by piece. You locate the exact point of failure, and you construct a superior framework. Frustration is the prerequisite for innovation. Finally, we must decode anxiety. Anxiety is perhaps the most misunderstood emotion of the modern era. It feels paralyzing, but fundamentally, anxiety is just your brain's threat modeling software, running simulations of the future. Your brain is aggressively attempting to predict every single way a scenario could go wrong so that you can survive it. The amateur lets these simulations loop endlessly in their mind, paralyzing their ability to execute. The alchemist takes the anxiety out of their head and puts it onto a whiteboard. If your brain is terrified that a product launch will fail, you thank it for the data. Then, you use that anxious energy to draft 10 ironclad contingency plans. You use the anxiety to become the most meticulously prepared person in the room. You transform the fear of failure into the architecture of certainty. You do not need to be calm all the time to be successful. You do not need to vibrate at a higher frequency. You simply need to stop running from your own biology. Stop judging the dark energy. Capture the fuel, decode the data, and put the fire to work. Chapter 7. The Architecture of Confidence. The self-help industry has aggressively marketed a catastrophic lie about confidence. It tells you that confidence is a mood. It tells you that if you stand in front of a mirror, look yourself in the eye, and repeat powerful affirmations, you will magically become a confident person. It champions the phrase, "fake it until you make it," as if the human nervous system can be tricked by a forced smile and a temporary shift in posture. This is a hallucination. Affirmations without execution are simply delusion. True, unshakable confidence is not a feeling. It is not a temporary chemical high that you can manufacture through sheer willpower. True confidence is an evidence-based conviction. Your brain is a highly logical, deeply skeptical biological machine. It does not care what you whisper to it in a mirror. It only cares about the indisputable, mathematical proof of your past actions. If you want to build the architecture of confidence, you must stop trying to manipulate your feelings and start manufacturing undeniable evidence. For the elite operator, confidence rests on a foundation of 6 specific, non-negotiable pillars. The first pillar is emotional self-reliance. The amateur outsources their emotional state to the environment. If the market is up, they are happy. If a client praises them, they feel confident. If someone criticizes them, they completely collapse. This makes them incredibly fragile. The sovereign mind generates its own state. When you master the tactical pauses discussed in previous chapters, you realize that you, and only you, control your response to the world. You develop a profound self-reliance. You know that no matter how chaotic the external environment becomes, your internal environment is secure. You do not need the room to validate you because you have already validated yourself. The second pillar is competence building. You cannot fake competence. If you walk into a high-stakes negotiation or step onto a stage completely unprepared, your amygdala knows you are an imposter. It will flood your system with anxiety to warn you. In this scenario, anxiety is not a disorder. It is a highly accurate biological alarm telling you that you are about to be exposed. True confidence is built in the dark through thousands of hours of unseen, unglamorous skill development. You become confident by becoming undeniably dangerously good at what you do. You eliminate the anxiety by over-preparing to the point where failure becomes a statistical anomaly. The third pillar is integrity alignment. We often view integrity merely as a moral buzzword, but from a neurological standpoint, integrity is structural soundness. When your internal values match your external actions, your nervous system operates with zero friction. You are whole. But when you lie, when you compromise your standards, or when you act out of alignment with who you claim to be, you introduce massive psychological friction. Your subconscious mind keeps a ruthless ledger, and when you lack integrity, it loses respect for you. You cannot be genuinely confident if you fundamentally do not trust yourself. The fourth pillar is resilience. Amateurs believe confidence means knowing you will never fail. They wait for a guarantee of success before they are willing to take action. Professionals know that confidence means knowing you can survive the failure. When you intentionally expose yourself to strategic stress, when you survive the cold water, the intense pressure, and the inevitable rejections, you prove to your brain that you are hard to kill. You realize that a setback is not a death sentence. It is just a data acquisition event. The confident operator is not afraid to bleed because they know exactly how to heal. The fifth pillar is future orientation. Insecure people obsess over their past failures. They let their history dictate their identity. They carry the weight of yesterday into every room they enter. Confident people operate entirely from the perspective of their future self. When faced with a terrifying decision, they do not ask, "What is the safest option for me today?" They ask, "What action would the person I am becoming take right now?" They borrow the conviction of their future identity and execute it in the present. They pull themselves forward rather than letting the past drag them backward. The sixth and final pillar is contribution focus. This is the ultimate hack for crippling self-doubt and performance anxiety. When you are terrified before a speech, a pitch, or a critical meeting, it is because your focus is turned entirely inward. You are obsessing over your own ego. What will they think of me? Will I sound stupid? Will I ruin my reputation? You cure this by violently shifting your focus outward. You stop worrying about your own self-perception, and you obsess entirely over being useful to the people in the room. When your primary objective is to serve the mission, to solve the client's problem, to protect your team, to deliver absolute value, the ego dissolves and the paralyzing anxiety evaporates with it. Stop waiting to feel confident before you act. The feeling is a lagging indicator. It only arrives after the work is done. Step into the arena, execute the inputs, build the stack of undeniable proof. Let your relentless actions convince your brain that you are exactly who you say you are. Chapter 8. Strategic non-reaction in relationships. The most brutal, unforgiving testing ground for emotional mastery is not the corporate boardroom. It is not the high-stakes negotiation table. And it is certainly not the battlefield. It is your own living room. Intimate relationships and close professional partnerships completely bypass your standard psychological defenses. In the professional world, you wear armor. You expect friction, so your prefrontal cortex is already engaged. But with a spouse, a family member, or a deeply trusted business partner, that armor is voluntarily removed. Because the stakes are so intensely personal, your amygdala becomes hypersensitive. A single poorly chosen word, a slight shift in vocal tone, or even a specific facial expression from a partner can trigger a massive emotional hijack in a fraction of a second. To navigate this absolute minefield without destroying the relationship, you must first understand a specific neurological mechanism called mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are the biological foundation of human empathy. When you watch a movie and see someone cry, your mirror neurons fire in a way that makes you physically feel a shadow of their sadness. This is beautiful for bonding, but it possesses a catastrophic dark side during a conflict. It is the engine of emotional contagion. When a partner or colleague comes at you in a state of intense, volatile anger, panic, or frustration, your mirror neurons immediately attempt to synchronize your nervous system with theirs. It is a biological reflex. If you are not operating with a sovereign mind, their panic instantly becomes your panic. Their aggression instantly becomes your aggression. You instinctively match their emotional frequency, you escalate together, and the conversation ends in mutually assured destruction. Mastery in relationships requires the relentless practice of strategic non-reaction. You must learn the delicate paradox of human connection. Deep intimacy requires profound empathy, but maintaining control of the dynamic requires strategic emotional detachment. This begins with the absolute acceptance of the 50% rule. In any interpersonal interaction, there is a dynamic. You only own exactly 50% of that dynamic. You do not control the other person's mood. You do not control their past trauma, their daily stress levels, or their internal, hallucinated narrative of reality. You only control your response. When you try to control their 50%, when you tell a furious partner to just calm down, or when you try to logically dismantle their emotional state while they are hijacked, you are committing a boundary violation. You are threatening their autonomy, which acts like gasoline on the fire of their amygdala. You must take absolute, uncompromising responsibility for your 50% and entirely surrender control of theirs. When the other person escalates, the amateur animal instinct is to match their intensity. If they raise their voice, you raise yours to establish dominance and defend your ego. The sovereign operator does the exact opposite. They utilize a technique called emotional Aikido. In the martial art of Aikido, a practitioner does not meet force with force. When an attacker lunges, the master does not stand their ground and block the punch. They step aside, blend with the motion, and use the attacker's own momentum to redirect them safely to the ground. Emotional Aikido works exactly the same way. When a partner comes at you with intense, hostile energy, you execute the stop protocol. You take the breath, and then you intentionally drop your physiological baseline. You speak slightly slower than normal. You intentionally lower the volume of your voice. You physically relax your posture, uncrossing your arms and dropping your shoulders. You do not absorb their chaotic energy, and you absolutely do not mirror it. You act as a grounded lightning rod. The electricity hits you, and it travels safely into the earth without destroying the house. You acknowledge their reality without validating their hostility. You say, "I can see that you are incredibly frustrated right now, and I want to solve this with you." You address the emotion, which soothes their amygdala, but you refuse to participate in the chaos. This is where the power of the strategic pause is absolute. When a toxic, emotionally charged accusation is thrown at you, silence is your most devastatingly effective weapon. A 3-second pause before answering an aggressive question accomplishes two critical things. First, it ensures your own prefrontal cortex remains online. Second, it acts as an acoustic mirror for the other person. When their loud, aggressive volatility is met with complete, unbothered silence, the emotional contagion is broken. They are forced to hear the awkward echo of their own dysregulation in the empty space of the room. Many people mistake strategic non-reaction for being a cold, unfeeling sociopath. It is exactly the opposite. It is the ultimate act of emotional intelligence and love. When the people you care about are caught in the storm of their own biology, they do not need you to jump into the tornado with them. They need you to be the lighthouse. They need you to stand firm, rooted in your own sovereignty, providing a safe, unmoving harbor until their storm passes. Do not let another human being hold the remote control to your nervous system. Be the thermostat, not the thermometer. Set the temperature of the room and force the environment to adjust to you. Chapter 9. Execution under pressure. Crises do not build character, they reveal it. When the environment is calm, the market is favorable, and everyone is well rested, anyone can successfully play the role of the calculated, stoic strategist. It is easy to be emotionally intelligent when there is absolutely nothing at risk. But when the stakes become existential, when your company is hemorrhaging capital, when a critical product launch is crashing in real time, or when you are locked in a ruthless negotiation that will permanently alter your financial future, the polite, socially conditioned facade is violently stripped away. In those moments of extreme duress, you do not magically rise to the level of your goals or your expectations. You fall violently, rapidly, and predictably to the level of your biological training. High-stakes environments are the ultimate, uncompromising test of the sovereign mind. To survive and dominate in these arenas, you must adopt the operational frameworks used by elite military units and Tier 1 executives. The first and most critical rule of execution under extreme pressure is the absolute detachment from the outcome. This principle often sounds deeply counterintuitive to the highly ambitious. You are sitting at the negotiation table precisely because you desperately want the outcome. But biologically, the exact moment you become emotionally tethered to a specific result, the moment you tell yourself that you must win this deal, that you need this specific client, or that your identity will be destroyed if you fail, you have handed your opponent a loaded weapon. Your desperation will leak into your micro-expressions. Your tone of voice will shift. Most dangerously, your amygdala will read the potential loss of the deal not as a business setback, but as a literal threat to your physical survival. It will flood your system with anxiety, and to relieve that agonizing psychological tension, you will inevitably compromise your standards. You will negotiate against yourself. The elite operator shifts their emotional attachment entirely away from the final outcome and locks it exclusively onto the execution of the process. You do not control whether the client signs the contract. You only control the flawless execution of your pitch. You only control the precise articulation of your value and the unwavering enforcement of your boundaries. When you detach from the result, you become incredibly dangerous in a room. You become impossible to manipulate because the threat of losing no longer triggers a biological hijack. You can look a powerful opponent in the eye, hold your ground, and walk away from a terrible deal with a perfectly resting heart rate. The second rule is the reframing of pressure. Amateurs view pressure as an external monster that is actively attacking them. They use language that victimizes them, saying things like, "I am under so much pressure," as if they are trapped beneath a physical weight. The sovereign mind understands a profound biological truth. Pressure is entirely an internal construct. The universe does not manufacture pressure. It only produces neutral circumstances. The sensation you call pressure is simply the physical manifestation of your body preparing to perform at its absolute limit. When your heart rate spikes before a massive public speech or a board meeting, your brain is not failing you. It is actively optimizing you. It is pumping massive amounts of oxygen to your brain and glucose to your muscles. It is giving you the exact chemical cocktail you need to be sharp, hyper-focused, and lethal. If you reframe that sensation, if you tell your brain, "This is my nervous system giving me the exact energy I need to dominate this room," the paralyzing anxiety immediately transmutes into unadulterated execution. The third rule is the implementation of laser focus, or what tactical operators call thin slicing. During a crisis, the environment is drowning in noise. People are panicking, conflicting data is pouring in, and the timeline is collapsing. The animal brain attempts to process everything at once, causing massive cognitive overload and immediate paralysis. The elite operator violently filters out 99% of the chaos. They isolate the single, most critical variable that needs to be solved in the next 5 minutes. If a ship is sinking, you do not worry about the aesthetic arrangement of the deck chairs. You do not worry about whose fault it is that the hull struck the reef. You worry exclusively about the water entering the boat. You identify the primary point of failure. You aim 100% of your cognitive bandwidth at that singular target, and you execute until the bleeding stops. Finally, high-stakes execution requires uncompromising contingency architecture. You do not build your lifeboats while the ship is taking on water. You build them in dry dock. The sovereign mind conducts rigorous pre-mortem analyses. Long before entering the high-pressure environment, you sit down in a state of absolute calm and visualize every catastrophic failure that could possibly occur. You write out the exact step-by-step protocol for how you will respond to each disaster. When the crisis actually hits and the room erupts into chaos, you do not have to think. You do not have to negotiate with your panic. You do not have to rely on a compromised prefrontal cortex. You simply open the manual and flawlessly execute the protocol you designed when you were at peace. Pressure is a privilege. It is the intense, burning friction that separates the elite from the average. Do not pray for a lighter burden, and do not hope for an easier path. Train for stronger shoulders and step into the fire. Chapter 10. Your Emotional Operating System. Inspiration is a remarkably cheap commodity. You can listen to this audiobook, feel a massive surge of motivation, and promise yourself that you will never let your ancient biology control you again. But tomorrow morning, when you are exhausted, when the emails are piling up and the brutal friction of reality hits you in the face, that inspiration will completely vanish. Willpower is a highly finite, rapidly depleting resource. If you rely on sheer discipline to maintain emotional sovereignty, you will eventually collapse. Transformation requires a system. You must build an emotional operating system, a robust automated architecture that defends your baseline when your willpower inevitably fails. The first component of this system is environmental design. Your environment is infinitely stronger than your discipline. If you are constantly surrounded by toxic, highly reactive people, your mirror neurons will eventually synchronize with their chaos. You cannot maintain a level 3 conscious response if you live and work in a level 1 environment. You must ruthlessly audit your social circle and your information diet. Are you consuming media that is algorithmically designed to trigger your amygdala with outrage, fear, and tribalism? Cut it off. Are you spending time with colleagues whose default state is panic and gossip? Limit your exposure. You must curate an environment that promotes psychological safety and strategic calm. Protect your inputs with your life, because your inputs dictate your neurological outputs. The second component is trigger identification. You cannot fight an enemy you do not see. Every human being has specific, deeply ingrained emotional tripwires forged by their past experiences. For some, it is the feeling of being micromanaged. For others, it is a perceived lack of appreciation or a sudden threat to their financial security. You must conduct a forensic, totally objective analysis of your past hijacks. Look at the last 5 times you lost your temper or spiraled into a dark, anxious state. What was the exact stimulus? When you map your triggers, they lose their power of surprise. If you know a specific weekly meeting or a certain client is a high-risk trigger, you do not walk in blind. You walk into the room with your prefrontal cortex already fully engaged, anticipating the strike. The third component is the daily maintenance routine. Emotional regulation is a highly perishable skill. You cannot wait for a firefight to learn how to use your weapon. You must train it every single day. The sovereign operator builds mindfulness and breathwork directly into their schedule, not as a luxury, but as non-negotiable cognitive maintenance. 10 minutes of focused box breathing every morning is not a soft spiritual retreat. It is a hard mechanical recalibration of the parasympathetic nervous system. It sets your biological baseline low and slow. By deliberately dropping your resting heart rate at the start of the day, you give yourself a massive physiological buffer before the stress of the world can push you into the red zone. The fourth and most dangerously neglected component is the recovery protocol. Suppressing an amygdala hijack, executing the stop protocol, and navigating a high-stakes crisis requires massive amounts of neurological energy. When the crisis is over, you will experience an emotional hangover. Your dopamine levels will crash, and your system will be flooded with metabolic waste. If you do not intentionally recover, you will enter the next day running on a severe cognitive deficit, making you highly susceptible to a new hijack. You must have a deliberate protocol for restoring equilibrium. This means completely severing your psychological connection to the stressor. It means engaging in deep restorative sleep. It means utilizing somatic regulation, like an intense workout or a sauna, to violently flush the residual combat chemicals from your bloodstream. You cannot operate a high-performance machine at maximum RPM indefinitely without eventually changing the oil. When you fully install this operating system, you transition from merely managing your own emotions to leading with them. This brings us to the ultimate peak of the mountain: emotional leadership. True leadership is not about technical supremacy, and it is certainly not about dictating orders. It is almost entirely about emotional modeling. Your team, your spouse, and your children do not listen to what you say. They absorb how you regulate. As the leader, you control the emotional contagion of the room. If a crisis hits and you panic, your mirror neurons broadcast that terror, and the entire room panics. But if you absorb the chaos, execute the stop protocol, and project cold, calculated strategy, the room immediately stabilizes. People do not follow a title. They follow the person who makes them feel psychologically safe. Build the system, map the triggers, audit the environment, defend the baseline. You are the architect now. The machine works for you. The compound effect. The finish line. We have reached the end of the framework. You now possess a comprehensive understanding of the biological machinery that drives human behavior. You know the exact mechanics of the 12-millisecond amygdala hijack, and you possess the tactical arsenal required to forcibly wedge open the space between stimulus and response. The philosophy has been delivered. The tactical tools are securely in your hands. But before we close this book, you must understand the true, staggering scale of what you are building. Emotional mastery is not simply about winning a single argument. It is not about surviving a stressful Tuesday at the office or temporarily lowering your heart rate during a single difficult conversation. It is about the merciless, uncompromising math of the compound effect. Think about the trajectory of a standard human life. Every single day, you are faced with dozens of microscopic emotional choices. Your spouse makes a slightly passive-aggressive comment. A major client demands an unreasonable revision at the 11th hour. The traffic comes to a dead halt when you are already late for a crucial meeting. In every single one of these mundane moments, the path splits. You can surrender to the primitive animal brain, let the cortisol spike, and react with hostility. Or you can execute the stop protocol, take the breath, and consciously choose the strategic response. In isolation, one successful application of the STOP protocol seems entirely insignificant. It merely prevents a minor argument. But over the span of a decade, these microscopic decisions compound exactly like financial interest. When you consistently refuse to react with volatility, you slowly build an absolutely impenetrable professional reputation. You become known as the stabilizing force in the room. You become the rare individual who can be trusted with the highest stakes negotiations, because leadership and clients know you will never crack under pressure. This emotional discipline directly translates into massive financial and career equity. In your personal life, the compound effect is even more profound. When you stop absorbing your partner's panic and start practicing emotional Aikido, you completely eliminate the toxic generational cycles of escalation. You build a foundation of deep, unshakable psychological safety. You become the bedrock of your family. Biologically, the compound effect literally saves your life. By refusing to live in a chronic state of reactivity, you permanently lower your baseline cortisol levels. You reduce the systemic inflammation in your body. You protect your cardiovascular system. Through the laws of neuroplasticity, you literally rewire your neural pathways, shrinking the fear center of your brain and fortifying the executive center. This leads to the ultimate evolution. The sovereign mind does not merely survive the chaos of the modern world, it becomes anti-fragile. A fragile system breaks when exposed to stress. A robust system resists the stress and stays exactly the same. But an anti-fragile system actually becomes stronger, sharper, and more capable precisely because of the stress. When you master your emotional architecture, the obstacles no longer degrade you. The rude emails, the failed launches, and the sudden crises become the exact resistance training you use to build your emotional calluses. You use the fire of the world to forge the steel of your own mind. The world is loud, reactive, and driven entirely by biological impulses. The vast majority of the population will spend their entire lives as prisoners to their own amygdala, hallucinating that their temporary feelings are absolute truths. You are no longer part of that majority. The primitive algorithm has been overwritten. The cage has been built. The architect is awake. The next time the pressure spikes and the fire alarm rings, you will not run. You will stop. You will breathe. You will observe. And you will proceed exactly as you choose. This concludes our journey today. Thank you for listening. If you found value in this, please leave a like. It really helps the channel. I'd also love to hear your favorite takeaway in the comments below. Subscribe for more audiobooks, and I'll see you in the next one.